Instagram? Oh, you turned your
Yeah,
phone
I
off. There
fixed
we
it.
go.
It's like, that won't work. That'll be fun.
It will be fun. So is everyone hearing everyone properly?
I'm hearing you great.
I hear you too. We're good to go.
Okay.
What are we talking about today, Lisa?
That's a really good question. Although I meant to actually before I got on and then I forgot. I meant to look up I even forget what you call them, like what is it, the eight principles? What's the number even? I can't, like you have
The 9 essentials.
the nine essentials. I was like, what are those nine essentials again? Because I know like we have the same thought technology and the same like energetic technology, but our words can be different. And so I
Yeah.
was like wanting to get a refresher. So maybe do you mind giving me a refresher of the nine?
I would love to give you a refresher. And these essentials can all be found in Feldenkrais's work. So let's be kind and say Moshe
Transparent.
Feldenkrais
Yeah.
is a genius, and he came up with so much cool stuff. And of course, I don't know who all he talked to get stuff from. So thank
Exactly.
you to
Yes.
all the people
Yes.
that have contributed to this. And then Anat Beniel, one of Feldenkrais's students, further distilled it down into her 9 essentials. So the way she puts them is that number 1, you've got movement with attention. So you've got to pay attention to what you feel as you move. This is sort of the input, right? If we don't feel and we're not paying attention to what we feel, there's nothing to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Right.
1, movement with attention. 2, slow down.
Slow down. Yeah. Yeah.
Slow down. It's a way of giving ourselves more time to perceive more, right?
Yes.
Variations,
Connected to
because
one, right? Because they all stack, right? I mean, they're all like they're inseparable.
and
Right? Sorry, I
they're
didn't mean
all
to interrupt.
inseparable, and like some you can't even think of them linearly.
Yeah.
They're like this weird interconnected chain.
Yeah.
So we've got movement with attention, slow, and then variations.
Variation. Nice.
Another way of putting that is play, exploration. You've got to be flexible and try lots of different things to get the information you need, right? Because this is all about feeling and sensing. The information you need to let your body brain do what it does best and come up with answers for you in the moment, right? And then there's subtlety, because you can imagine that if I do big, hard, fast movements, it's hard to tell the difference between one thing and another. It just kind of whitewashes. You can't track. I love that. And enthusiasm. It doesn't have to be rah, rah, hey. I do. It doesn't have to be rah, rah, hey.
Yeah.
And actually, I hate the good job, bud. Way to go. I really detest that.
Yeah.
So that's not what enthusiasm is. Enthusiasm is your natural upwelling of enthusiasm, positive, warm emotion for whatever is going on, because that helps cement all the new neural connections you're making, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can even feel that in your body. If you're feeling yuck,
Absolutely.
hopefully you're not cementing those new neural connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have to have flexible goals, right? And it's funny, I was rereading The Intention Experiment last night, Lynn Taggart, and a lot of these essentials are in both science and alternative work, and some people might call it in the alternative field manifesting. But when you have a goal, if you want to get somewhere, you have to know where you're going. Absolutely. And you have to know exactly where you're going. But then you have to let go and back off, knowing that you don't know how you'll get there, when you'll get there, or even if you decide to change plans midstream.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we might say too, there's like, was that number 9?
No, that's 6.
Oh, that's 6.
Tell me what you want to say.
I was going to say there's so many layers of goals. Like there's sometimes we might call superficial goals, or not in a bad way, but just like there's another word I can't think of that is representing that, like a material goal it could be, or again, I've lost the word. But then there's the goal underneath that. Like, what will that material goal? What will you get if you have that? So in my world, it's desires. Like,
Right.
what are we desiring? And there's compensatory desires, and there's nothing wrong with those, right? We
Right.
live in a partial material world, so we don't deny that. But then we go beyond
Yes.
that into the non-material. What is, and that I think is what we're actually wanting, or our desires actually are connected to
Nice.
those core desires. So our goals may also be connected to something deeper than one layer comes forth at first.
Absolutely.
So the
I really like
adjustability
that.
with adaptability is important.
Yeah. And it's really hard to hear you right now, Lisa.
Oh
I'm sorry
shoot!
about that. It's okay. It's just when you speak, so hopefully it'll correct
It's
itself.
just when I
But
speak.
well, it sounds like this river of static in the background, but only when you speak.
Oh, I see. I see.
I see that river. Jessie Joy has joined us. Hi, Jessie. So
Oh, yeah.
if you're hearing it, okay, let us know. And if it's not so good, let us know too, and maybe we can fix it. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was 6, and I love that. I'd love to come back to that if our conversation flows that way. 7 is the learning switch. Um,
Mm.
there's lots of different ways to think about it, but because of what I was reading last night, I think of it more as whatever you're trying to do, it requires your participation. It requires you to
Ah,
be
yes.
on,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Even if you're passively doing, it's different from intentionally doing um, and wanting. Ooh, I see that river. That Jessie Joy is saying that the static is definitely there when Lisa speaks. Ooh,
Okay. Hmm.
sadness.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I can maybe
Oh,
see
it's
this.
better when you pick up the phone.
Yes. I just need to get it away from the computer.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, we figured that out.
Thank you, Jessie Joy.
I can hold it. Maybe. We'll see if this works. I'm gonna see if I can prop it up. Okay, I'm listening while I figure this out. I'm listening to
Yeah. You're being
number
flexible.
8. I am.
We're almost there. So 8 is imagination and dreams. And
Oh, imagination and dreams.
right. So
Yes.
it's not just visualizing, although visualizing is an important part of
Right.
anything we do. It's also having goals that are, I don't even want to call them goals. It's dreaming our future self, right?
Yes. Yes.
If you
This
don't
maybe this
have
is what we can
that,
talk about today. Actually, this is really on my mind these days. So,
oh,
but
this might be what
carry
we
on.
come back to.
Yeah.
That they're part of what let us be on and in the process, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that might go back to what you were saying about deeper desires.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I feel the tendrils into so many of the other ones that you've named, like enthusiasm. Like when I hear that, like that also came up for me this morning in a letter to somebody. I was like, ooh, I'm
Oh,
not feeling enthusiastic this morning, but I'm
okay.
feeling sincere. So the words are different and the energies might be different, but I'm still here. Like I'm still in. I'm still here. My energy is a little bit different right now than 3 hours ago. So I can't quite get back to that energy from all the way back this morning. But in that
Right.
moment, there was a calling forward for me to be here in any way, like in some way, right? To be participating in my reality in some way. And if it wasn't enthusiasm. There was a little bit of dullness this morning. I don't know if you saw that sunrise, but I was watching that as I was also feeling a dullness. It's like, oh, interesting. There's this. I'll send you a picture later or put it on the socials. But I'm like, I tapped in and I'm like, oh, I can feel a sincerity and a commitment to the work I'm doing. So
Okay.
I don't know how that's
Yeah.
related. I mean, it feels related to a lot of things that you've mentioned, but I think it's important to, like, as you have said in other ways, the words are not always going to be what we think they mean. Like enthusiasm isn't like cheerleader rah rah. It can
Mhm.
be really subtle. It can also be like standing ovation, you know, but it might be way more subtle than that. And so we don't want to get hooked up on the like tripped up on the words, right? We want to connect to the resonance of what you're
Yes.
inviting us into.
Right. And I love what you said because it's also um you're paying attention to what you feel as you move, as you describe, like, what am I feeling right now? You're looking for these really fine distinctions. Is it, and of course you have to use words because we're humans and
Yeah.
that's how
Yes.
we communicate most of the time.
Darn it.
Darn it. But yeah, that's really interesting. And I want to get to 9 and say hi to
Yeah.
Marina, who's here with us. Marina is also a
Yay. That's great.
practitioner. Thank you for joining
Oh,
us.
good. Hey, Marina.
And I'm curious if Marina just wants to type in the comments anything she wants to say about essential number 9, which is
Mm.
awareness.
Mm.
And honestly, I have a little bit of trouble with making the distinction between attention and awareness. I don't think they're completely separate concepts. And so
Mm.
talking about this, I sometimes get hung up talking about it. But the idea is we want to live um, fully aware
Mm.
of who we are and how we are in the moment, which
Mm.
can be elusive um,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to move from where you are. And if you don't know where you are, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think of like maybe um, a more boring, I don't know, not boring, but a different way of saying that might be like um, I'm trying not to use the word aware,
Yeah. Yeah.
being cognizant of the relationship of this moment,
Oh,
right?
tell
Like,
me more.
so my attention is on this cardinal, but my awareness goes beyond the cardinal. My awareness also is including the space behind me, the space around me. So obviously, some of my attention is also going to the space around me and around me. But I think like they weave, and I think you're right. Words are really tricky here. There's something nuanced, and you use a different word that I can't remember. What elusive maybe
Yeah.
um, that is we're talking about. But I like attention too. I think attention is important to know, to be able to know what's in our attention is actually very profound. And for most of us, we don't have that relationship with what is in our attention. We don't have that
Yeah.
fine-tuned ability to slow down and be in relationship with our moment in this culture that no one talks about that in this culture. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain or to the actual factual of this moment. Just go
Mhm.
buy another blah blah. Go,
Right.
go turn on your blah blah, or not that any of those blah blahs are bad, but we
Right.
lose our sovereignty or our sense of self when we do that. We don't have
Right.
actually one. We don't have
We're
we're not in
being
relationship.
directed. It's
Yes,
like
yes.
someone grabbed us and went, here, here,
Right,
here.
right, which is so
Yeah.
disempowering, right? Like if we're not in relationship with what our attention is including and excluding, and then all the other things that you said, we live very disempowered lives.
Mhm.
We're at the mercy of not our moment. We're at the mercy of whatever's
Right.
being fed to us. So
Right.
yeah.
And then the danger is that it becomes a habit, right? So they let go of us for a
Mm-hmm.
moment and we're on our own, but I've still got this habit of here, there, where, what?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so part of the work we do somatically is helping people notice where their attention goes, because that
Mm-hmm.
can be step one. Like, what's
Yeah,
calling for your attention right now? What's your habit of attention? What do you focus on first?
exactly. Yes. I call those like first responders or predictables.
Oh, tell me.
Well, our attention is habituated, like you're saying.
Yeah.
It's habituated to land in certain ways with certain data. And so
Mhm.
reference externally all the time, habitually. We might reference our thoughts. So we're really taking our thoughts as um, our gods, so to speak, or the
Okay.
outside world as the main influences of our experience. And so that happens,
Mhm.
that's a neural pathway thing, right? It just gets created as a habit. And it's a
Mhm.
first responder. It's a predictable way that we orient. So
Right.
we just want to know that, like, oh, I'm not even including myself. I'm lost in the cardinal, or I'm lost in you, or like, and it's like,
Mhm.
I want to be both and, right? I want to be with you, but I don't want to leave
Yep.
me behind. Like, why would I want to actually include me first and bring you into
Mhm.
my world, so to speak. And then we're together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
that
really
so that kind
interesting.
of went off in a tangent, but we want to know our predictables. We want to know how attention is habituated, and then we can see how there might be other ways to play with attention. What else do we want to include? What might have a different experience in our reality when we
Right.
include something else in our attention?
Right. And you do that, I assume, by guiding people through certain practices. And that's
Mhm.
built into the movement lessons we do. It's like
Right.
you notice where your attention goes, and then either you
Mhm.
can choose to direct your attention elsewhere, or you can choose to follow the invitation to direct your attention elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to say that years into this process, I literally needed to tie this practice to a somatic practice uh,
Mhm.
that practice
Mhm.
regularly, um, in order for it to become natural and easy, in order for that to become a habit, so that now I
Mhm.
can walk up to something and say, oh, you know, I'm focused here right now. Is that where I want my focus to be?
Mhm.
And
Right.
then I have choice in the moment, which is
Yes, then you
really
have choice.
liberating.
Yes, because
Yeah.
that's where empowerment comes from, is being able to choose. We're
Yeah.
literally able to choose our reality in that way, and experience. Just pretty powerful.
Wow. Can you go on about that? Because I had a question for you in one of our past conversations.
Yeah, yeah.
We briefly touched on bypassing and
Yeah.
positivity. And
Mm,
so when people talk about
mm,
creating their reality, sometimes they get sucked into this
mm,
um,
mm.
whitewashing, I call it,
Yes.
where
Mhm.
they want to focus just on the positive. But
Yeah.
from the
Yes.
perspective of my work, that doesn't work. How do you deal with it
No.
in your work?
Well, it doesn't work for anyone, actually.
Good to know.
But it might feel like it does, because
Mm,
positivity feels good. And
mhm,
so if I have a broken, well, I don't know, let's not go so extreme, like a sprain, it's going to feel good to ice it, or to numb it, right? So that feels good.
mhm.
Well, the the torn ligament or whatever is still there. It's not gone.
True.
But the numbing agent could be positivity, right? It could be like, look over here, look over there. Like, let's repeat
Mhm.
these sentences that really are beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's like, we need
No.
ice, actually, right? We
Thank
need
you.
numbing agents. We need lots of things, but we don't want to
Yeah.
be exclusionary,
Mhm.
right? We want to be like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the time to numb it, or to use ice, and until I can include the work to do the underlying work.
Right.
And so if we only are connecting to positivity, then we're like planting, I always use this like metaphor, we're planting flowers on a sewage tank. The sewage tank's just going to keep filling up. It's going to come to the surface. Well, you got to plant more flowers. You got to avoid more. You got to like duck and cover and like, you know, repress and push down. Keep adding the ice. Keep adding the ice, right? Well,
Mhm,
it's just
mhm.
not sustainable. So there's nothing wrong with positive, with affirmations, but they don't have to, but it's more useful and sustainable when they are actually relatable to your experience, and not a head trip or a fantasy, right? So we talk
Mhm.
about, this comes back to desires. And I was with a client last night, and we were talking about the desire inventory that we do in my classes, and it's like there's nothing wrong with those desires that are conceptual or fantasy based
Mhm.
or idea
Yeah.
based. So anything that we
Yeah.
think is imagined or fantasy, like that's all together. And there, again, there's nothing wrong with, like, I mean, I would love to be on the Miami Beach, on Miami Beach right now. I could imagine that.
Yeah.
That kind of it doesn't actually right now bring me anything, to be honest. But in a certain moment, it would. It's just I'm very
Right.
fulfilled right now, so there's it's like there's nothing maybe more fulfilling than this moment for me. I don't know. But in another moment, it
Wonderful.
might be like, oh, I'm just going to imagine Miami Beach, and like that would be lovely, you know.
Yeah.
However, it's a band aid. We don't want to rely on our imaginations for our well being. Right? We want to learn how. Okay, like what do I get from that imagining? Like what is it again that I really desire? What's actually here? So if I have a positive affirmation, I want to bring it around to a somatic reality. I want to bring it
Right.
around to an experiential reality. Um,
Right.
so that affirmation is landing in my experience. Otherwise, I just have to be in my head all the time. That's one, exhausting, and two, there's no agency and empowerment in that. But it might feel like there is. So that's why people will keep doing it. They don't want to, landing in
Right.
is not easy, right? Because when you land in, we're gonna come into some other things that we might not like the pain of the arm, right?
Right.
Or in my
Right.
world, we might call it shadows, or um, yeah, the shadow world, or things that we're uncomfortable with, right?
Right.
Or aspects of our life that we have dissatisfaction with,
Right.
or I mean,
And I want to get back to the fantasizing that we all do. That's lovely and wonderful. And that ties back to imagination and dreams.
okay, yeah.
All of these essentials, I want to point out, are to inform our action, right?
Mm,
We are about movement,
yes.
and you can think about even our thinking, and any kind of doing we do is sort of action. So how do we want this to inform our action? So we have these desires, we have imagination and dreams, and we can harness their power.
Yes,
And then we have to figure out, how do they inform our actions?
that's right. It's and both. So it's using the power of imagination and dreams, which is very important, and then
Mhm.
tapping into it with our bodies and our cognition into action.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there's clearly nothing wrong with imagination. There's clearly nothing wrong with
Right.
fantasy. It's a
No.
tool. It's really important. But
Right.
we don't want to exclude it, or live only there.
Right.
I'm reading a
There's
book by, oh, go ahead.
there's been so much attention given to the power of the mind,
Mhm.
that it sort of cements this dichotomy that the Western world has invented of the mind and body. And so, yes, people will cite that study where, oh, if you just mentally rehearse
Yeah,
playing the
yeah,
piano, it improves your piano skill. And of course it does.
yeah.
However, I would challenge you to find any concert pianist who trained solely in the mind. That just
Right.
doesn't happen. It has to be and both.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
What are
I
you
was.
reading?
Well, I'm in this book group, and we're reading a book by Miriam Kaba. And Miriam Kaba is a well-known activist, abolitionist, and I love her work because she's really guided by a core set of values. And we met last night, and one of the participants, this is kind of a paraphrase on what Miriam Kaba would say, is like imagining toward core values. So we use our
Aha.
imagination in conjunction with our core values. And if our core values are, well, the night essentials might have to do with some of those core values, but the core values might be liberation, for example.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, then we want our imagination to meld with our core values. And it's useful to know, so this brings me back to desires. It's good to know what our core desires are as a metric, to be like, is my imagination aligning with my core values? Or have I gotten a little bit lost in something anything else? Which the answer is often yes. And then let me redirect back to what actually the essentials for my life, or what's directing my
Right.
life, or what I hold most dear.
I have something to say about that, because
Yeah.
oftentimes when we do a movement, um,
Mm.
we can't figure out if it's familiar or comfortable. And I'm not going in that direction. I may surprise you
Yeah.
where I'm going here.
Okay, cool.
But but then we have to try it, and try it in different
Mhm.
ways, because we may think it's comfortable and they're like, wait, let me try it a slightly
Mhm.
different way. Is there something more comfortable? Um, so if
Mm.
that's more comfortable, is this truly comfortable, or am I just used to it? And that
Yeah.
can be an issue with, our values clarification, or our core, what's the word you were using?
Core
Our core
values,
value.
core desires.
Because
Yeah.
unless we're willing, when we
Mhm.
have that moment of, am I aligning with core values? You also have to ask, is this still a core value? Because as we move through the world, we change. What was once comfortable and is now familiar may no longer be comfortable, may no longer fit us. So we have
Absolutely.
to come, when we feel the disconnect, we have to ask, in what direction is it?
Mm. I like that. You feel the disconnect. What direction is it? And can you say a little bit more about, can you just say like a couple more sentences that would be a follow up to what you just said? Like what direction,
Well,
when you say what direction is it, what does that mean?
right. So it's easy to assume that the core values are static and unchanging. So if I feel a disconnect, oh, it must be because I'm not in alignment with my core values, rather than asking, have I changed enough that I need to take a new
Mhm.
inventory and see how my core values have shifted? It doesn't even need to be a big shift for
Mhm.
us to
Yeah.
notice disconnect, right?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Does that
Right. It's like, what am
clarify?
I holding most dear? And
Mm-hmm.
is that from familiarity, from habit, from an
Mm-hmm.
attachment? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of brings me back to this morning when I woke up feeling a little dull. I was really, I really had to use effort to be curious about that and
Mm-hmm.
not assume it was in contradiction to a core, we'll just go with this language that we're using, a core value or what's dear to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like feeling dull, actually. I might have a little attachment to a certain way of feeling, right? And
Mm,
if I put meaning making on the dullness, I could easily go down a hill, a hill
right.
into false meaning making, I could say.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I don't like the dullness because have some attachment to a different feeling, for example,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that certain feeling isn't the end all be all that I have thought it is. Maybe I need to let go of that. When I did do that, something shifted in my system. There was a liberation of sorts, and I can't quite find your words that you use, but I can feel how it's
Okay.
related. But because I can't remember your words, I can't like bring it right back. But I'm
Yeah, yeah.
wondering like if that makes sense. Like there's a letting go and then like a rediscovering because we're
Absolutely.
being flexible with our thoughts and our attachments, maybe, or what's
Right.
familiar.
That is the perfect um, um, phrase, the
Mm-hmm.
flexibility and letting go, right? Just re-examining. And
Mm-hmm.
you can just think of it as having a favorite pair of pants, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
or you have a favorite pair of pants, and then some time goes by and you put them on again and they don't feel quite right. And it's because you've changed.
Yes,
Maybe you
yes, yes.
suddenly started cycling, and you got really strong in certain parts of your body, and so
Mm-hmm.
it starts to chafe on your thighs, or whatever it is. We
Yeah,
change subtly all the time.
yeah,
and
yeah.
and so our habits serve us
Well,
until
and
they
we
don't
have
serve
minds that
us.
like to create an illusion of permanence. So then we have dissonance because we forget that the ways that our thoughts are created in our amazing brains is to give off
Mhm.
the illusion of permanence, but we're actually
Thank you.
changing every day.
Yeah. I love that. Do you want to say more about that?
Well, I think it's just important to acknowledge like there's a reason why we want things to be the same. And it's not
Aha.
because we're dumb or broken or foolish. It's because the wiring in our brains creates a sense of familiarity and patterning that give off the idea that something is fixed. And I always use the
Mhm.
stairs example. So um, the brain takes an experience and then it starts making a model. So when I go upstairs, like um, without that, I'd have to go up the stairs new every time, which would
Be
take
awful.
like we've all seen like 1 year olds go up the stairs. It takes a very, very long time, right? Well, we have
Yes.
efficient brains, so it shoves all of those experiences together. Now I can go up any stair without paying attention because my brain
Mhm.
has created solidity. But the
Right.
truth of the matter is, like, every staircase is a little different and every moment is a little bit different. But our brains are kind of not like are telling us a different story, right?
Right.
And it's a cool mechanism that we have, but it's actually not a truth telling mechanism. It's one of
Right.
convenience or yeah,
Yeah.
just
And
plasticity.
it's important though that we do need to balance when we uh,
Mm.
use the hack of using fixed schemas, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we need it.
Yeah, for
We need
sure.
that. And when
Yes,
we
we
choose,
do.
and when we choose to sort of turn on our feeling self, um, to take in some information and keep our dynamic,
Mm.
organic system alive, right? Because we don't need just food and water and relationships. We also
Mm.
need um, quality information for the brain. And so when we're able to go up those steps, feeling the step, noticing maybe how one foot hits rather than the other, just for fun, no need to make a big
Yeah.
deal out of it, engaging that mechanism
Mhm.
keeps us feeling alive. So without
It
needing to
does.
be,
It does. It really does. Like it wakes up our system out of auto I can't think of the word, but like robot land, right? Which
yeah.
I can really go there. I mean, I could just go on automation so much, right? And
Right.
again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but my quality of experience is going to be really different. Right?
Right.
Why not enjoy going up the stairs, for example? Or I'm going to go to food, right? I I don't think we've really shared a meal together, but
No.
my loved ones know that I love food, and it's a very fun experience for me. Like
Mhm.
can be a little bit entertaining to eat with me because I love taste, I love the senses, and
Mhm.
so I have a good time when I eat, and yay, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna go for a quality, alive experience instead of eating really quickly and not tasting anything,
Mhm.
right? That's okay
Mhm.
too. And sometimes I do that. But the experiences are different, right? So we're looking at quality of experience. And I think in this culture, we are invited to be purposeful in looking for opportunities to enjoy our moments because we live in this capitalistic, very um, well, that says it all. Culture that's really interested in output, not quality. So we
Mhm.
have to use effort to be like, where is quality? Like, what does feel
Mhm.
good in this moment, right? And just as I'm asking that, I'm asking my system, and it's like, ooh, there's so much that feels good in
Right.
this moment when I
And
check in.
and that's really important to talk about the capitalistic society because
Mm.
it will push us into positivity or focusing
Yes.
on only certain feelings, right? Because if, and I'll stick with food, the food industry
Mm-hmm.
knows what's going to get us going and it wants us to focus on salty, sweet, you know, only a tiny fraction of what we can taste, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is very different then being able to taste bitter, sweet, sour, and all the fine gradations in between, which can be sensual and fun.
Mm,
And it's those
yeah,
contrasts
yes.
that make life more exciting, right? Because I'm sure we've all had the experience of just too much of one thing, and suddenly we just we don't feel it
We don't
anymore.
exactly. Yep. Yeah. So I think it does require some effort to like all those essentials that
Exactly.
you've named are that's kind of what we're talking about, even with regard to food, right?
You need
It's
variation.
exactly, yeah, yeah. There, I love how the essentials are applicable and with really with anything,
Mhm.
which is why they're essentials, right? Yeah.
Well, they're
Mm,
just how the brain learns, right? So whatever
mm,
field you're in, whatever it is you do, our brain is there to help us learn, right?
mhm.
Learning is a way of adapting to our present circumstances, which is what keeps us alive. And in order to learn, these are sort of the way we prepare the ground. We,
Mm,
this
mhm.
is how we learn. And and we know that when they're not there, we hate learning. It's not learning anymore. So you can think of
Yeah.
kids who have stuff drilled into them or have timed tests, right? They have to go fast. And suddenly,
Mm.
not learning anymore. They've violated the essentials, the things we actually need to turn on our organic intelligence.
Right, and you know that I talk a lot about brain and nervous system regulation. When we put our kids in that predicament,
You
like their
cut out,
nervous system
Lisa.
and
I
their
can't hear
brains are
you.
out of regulation,
You know,
and
I talk a
it's
lot about,
oh, that's funny. I got a phone call. Am I back?
okay, you're back.
Yeah.
So you say
Okay,
you
great.
talk a lot about nervous system?
Oh, brain and nervous system regulation, right?
Yes.
And when we put our kids in those predicaments of tight confinements, time limits,
Mhm.
the pressure, like the brain is like it's a petri dish for dysregulation, and then we want
Yes.
our kids to perform their best in a dysregulated state, right? So in a way, what you're talking about and what I'm talking about are ways for our that will also at the very same time be regulating
Mhm.
our brain and nervous systems, so that
Yeah.
when we're on the table for you, or we're
Right.
at the dinner table, or
Love
in
it.
any experience, we can
Yeah.
access our whole self, our full self, our full
Yes.
brain, our nervous system that's
Mhm.
accessible, as
Yeah.
opposed to a narrowed version of ourself. So coming back to the positivity gig, if we
Right.
are adhering to positive psychology as a mode, we have to shrink to match that. And we have to work hard um, and constrict to match a certain way of thinking. And in doing so, we become dysregulated.
Mhm.
Actually, it's it's um, it's not funny, but it's ironic
Mhm.
because we can access abundance, um, which might have something to do with positivity, without without vigilantly focusing on it.
Tell me what you mean.
Yeah. So if we do positive psychology or fixate on positive affirmations and we're ignoring the other stuff, we will constrict and our nervous systems and brains will dysregulate. If we include all the other stuff, the abundance will show up too.
I see what
It
you're saying.
has to, right? So when we include
Right.
everything, we include everything, and that means like yes, we might be
Yes.
feeling discomfort, which
Yeah.
is why a lot of people will go toward a positivity movement to begin with, is we don't want to be in our bodies, we just want to be in our positive thoughts. But once we learn how to be with discomfort, then
Mhm.
we like for me, I had to learn how to be with the abundance of feelings in my body. Like I didn't know that either,
Right.
right? So it's all yeah, more aliveness begets more aliveness.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm thinking of black and white versus color TV, right? If we
Mm,
narrow ourselves by focusing on only one or two shades, right? Then
Mm.
we're excluding a lot of other things besides just the discomfort, right? Whereas if we allow all the colors through, yes, we will feel the discomfort and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that.
And
Thank
I
you,
think
Lisa.
this, well, I think it comes like full circle back to attention. So one reason that we go towards positivity, as we've shared, is that we don't like discomfort.
Mm,
Um, so we're kind of like in this push pull, like we're running from discomfort, which means the discomfort is actually running our lives. Like it's because it's just going to keep, the sewage is going to keep coming, right? Um,
mhm.
and so our attention is actually really on discomfort when we're trying to focus on positivity. We're just
Right,
not being honest about it. Like we're not being conscious about it. We're not aware of that that's
right.
what's happening. So when we can be honest and be like, oh, actually, let me on like with conscious attention choose to include discomfort, but also, and here's the important piece, not forget about the rest of my experience,
Mhm.
right? Because we, whether we know it or not, we've become obsessed with discomfort so much that we do everything but not feel it. So
Mhm.
part of attention is like learning how to acknowledge, oh, we are uncomfortable, and can we include that consciously on purpose with our attention, but then also to direct our attention to all the other experiences that we're having that are not uncomfortable, that are
Right.
either neutral or fine or lovely,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so then we've got a full
Yes.
experience, not just a one of discomfort.
And the important thing I'd like to add here is that then this improves function, right? Because
Yeah,
so
right.
in my world, everything is towards executing a function, right? We
Mhm,
explore ourselves to know ourselves better,
mhm.
but so that we can, but then the bigger context is a functional movement pattern. And now
Yes.
say I
Yeah.
have an injury somewhere, I want to feel into it and respect it. Okay. So I'm going to feel
Yeah.
into it and be like, what can I do that's still comfortable?
Mhm.
What can I do differently to maybe access more comfort? But I'm including my
Yeah.
whole self. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
so then the issue of like, well, this is broken kind of disappears because it's not form over function. Function always wins out, right? We will
Mhm.
find ways to make things work, but in order for them to work, we can't exclude parts of the whole,
Right.
right?
Yes.
You can
Great way to
we've
say
all driven our car when part of it was broken, but we didn't
it.
ignore it, right? We knew what was
Yeah.
broken, what we could get away with, what we couldn't, knowing
Yes.
when we would maybe do something about it or not. You need the whole thing and you need to do to work towards a function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't have functionality if our attention is only going to one thing.
Right.
Like, and that just like in my world, that means like living life. Like if I have an ache in my somewhere,
Mhm.
and I can't, and I'm fixated on it, I won't be able to enjoy life, right? If I can acknowledge the ache X place, but also acknowledge the wellness that exists other places, then I might be able to have some kind of different experience with life.
Right. So
It's
I have a
tricky.
tough question for you
Okay.
because in my world, if there's someone who's fixated on the place they think of as broken, the
Hmm.
invitation is
Or like
to
painful,
say that again.
like broken or painful or uncomfortable, like those all. Uh-huh.
So without realizing it, people think that um, this is broken, it needs to be fixed, right? So if they feel discomfort somewhere, a lot of people, because of the way we talk about pain and discomfort in our culture, will say, oh, it's my psoas, or,
Hmm.
they'll put a name
Yeah.
to it and
Oh,
then
okay.
they'll hyperfixate on it
Hmm.
in trying to fix it. And of course, that narrows the vision down. So the invitation is always to come back to the whole, to not worry about that. Um, and in my work, what sometimes happens is that people will hear and say they understand that it's a nonlinear process of discovery where you're learning to organize your system for better use of the whole self. And they'll verbalize understanding, but they snap right back into, I'm not fixed yet. What's wrong?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So I'm curious where you go with this.
Oh. Yeah. So I think the first thing that comes to my mind is like, I'm not fixed yet. That means something to them in their mind.
Mhm,
And I want to know what it is. Like, what does that mean to them in their imagination? I had
mhm,
somebody the other day, and that we were talking about desires, and I was like, "What is that? Like, what would that look like in your mind?" She's like, "Oh, I have zero stress." I'm like, "Oh, well, that's really, it's good to know that you're measuring yourself according to an imagined self who has no stress, because that's
right?
an impossible. That's an impossibility. You'll never achieve that. So you'll be on a rabbit hole chasing the unachievable." So I would
Right.
want to know what that means for them, what it looks like, what it
Mhm,
feels like the metric that they're measuring themselves according to, and see like if what they're measuring themselves according to or their desire according to is within the realm of possibility. It may be, it
yeah,
may not be.
yeah.
I'd also want to know like what's connected to that. Like once they have that, then what will they get to have? Like who will they be? Who do they think they're
Mhm,
not because of this X?
right, right. Generally, I try to tie it to what do you want to be able to do and how do you want to
Sure.
be able to do it? Because
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
is movement related.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
but
mean, we have a
I'll
little
start,
bit of different context in our work. So, but I like that. Yeah.
but that's important because I think unless we talk about those background desires, right? Because what does it mean to be able to garden, to be able to garden again? Well,
Yeah. Yeah. And like,
for
and
one
even
person,
that
it
one,
may
like,
be for one
yes.
person, it
Go
may
ahead.
be, I'm happy, for one person, that vision might be, oh, I use my special assistive devices. I go out half an hour a day. I'm gardening again. For another person
Yeah.
is, I can roll around, tear things out, be out there 8 hours a day. They both say the same thing,
Mhm.
but maybe I
Mhm.
need to do a little more digging. Maybe we all need to do a
Right.
little more digging to say, well, what do I mean when I say that?
Yeah. Right. And if I'm hinging my happiness or my well-beingness on that big vision, that's a real, that could be a potential burden, right? And
Yeah.
so again, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. However, we might look at like the possibility of a micro step. Like
Mhm.
what other kind of gardening might you like to do? Like as a person who doesn't own much land,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be gardening in a certain ways that somebody might say like, you don't garden at all, and I'd be like, well, according to your metric, I don't,
Right.
right? Because I garden on my back porch, like that's how I
Right.
garden. But if we're not speaking the same language, even in our mind's
Mhm.
eye, we'll be just chasing. So that
Yeah.
clarity piece is important to be like, oh, gardening, what can gardening be for me? Like, darn it, I don't have land. But what's possible? Like, what do I have? Like, how can I garden? What
Exactly.
options let me talk to some people who also don't have land. What do they do? Like, how
Right.
might it look? What other possible, and that's actually a
Yeah.
real thing for me. Like I'm pursuing
Mhm.
different available apparati or constructions to be able to grow food on my little plot.
Yeah.
It's a desire I have on some level. And I
Yeah.
don't have all the answers, so I have to be willing to be adaptable and adjustable and curious and like all those other essentials to see like, okay, it's not going to match that metric of an acre of land. but I might be able to produce some kale, and that's really what I want. Like what I really desire is food. I don't
Yeah.
actually desire an acre. I don't want that. I want food that I
Right.
grow, right? So
Right. Yeah.
discerning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we say all the time in lessons, like what's available to you right now. So you
Mhm.
feel, you
Yeah.
sense, you move, and then you look for
Yeah.
what's available and you work with that,
Hmm.
to sort of
Yeah.
differentiate around the edges.
And we might need to grieve a little bit. Like when I first moved into my
Absolutely.
space, I needed to grieve that I wasn't going to have an acre. I needed to grieve, like, oh, I had this image of what I wanted to do and how I wanted
Yeah.
to homestead. And when I had to grieve that, Lisa, actually, I had to let her go. I had to say goodbye to those imagined fantasies, to that person that I imagined myself to be, to the identities that went with her. I had to grieve that
Mm-hmm.
and be like, oh, like maybe that's in my future. I don't know, but I've got to feel the
Yeah.
feels and the discomfort and be honest, like that I'm saying goodbye to that right now.
Yeah.
And then what can I have now? What's possible with what I have, right? Not just be like,
Yeah.
well, I can't fucking garden. That sucks.
Yeah.
Hmm,
You
you
always have
know.
to have a dream. You have to have a dream to propel
Yeah,
you to
yeah,
action. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
really that's a key point there. And it ties back again to our embracing positivity all the time is just not going to work, because I do think
Mm,
that gets in people's way of actually feeling better in their bodies,
mhm.
um,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they haven't stopped to realize, to, you know, when we grieve, we're also giving up literally a part of ourselves in our brains. That self-image
Yes. Yes.
is literally represented in our brains. That's why, partially
Yes.
why when someone dies, we're looking for them, because we've mapped them. We have literally mapped them in
Yes.
our lives. And as the brain
Mm.
shifts to the new reality, um, it has to change. And that takes a ton of work, including grieving. And so, yeah, maybe you're giving me ideas for working with self-image, because a lot of what we do is um, focused towards having an accurate self-image,
Mm.
right? But then if we're hanging on too tightly to certain
Mm.
dreams and incorporating them into our current self-image, that's not an accurate self-image. We have to
Right.
grieve that. Thank you for naming that. We
Yes.
have to grieve that part of the dream
Yeah. Or
to
that
make
self. Yeah, like you
room
said.
of that, to have a more accurate image of the current self. You're never going to have an accurate image of your current self until you've let go of the part
Right.
of the dream that has meshed with your current reality, right? You
Yeah.
want the
Yeah.
dream, you need the dream, but it has to be flexible, mutable, and not part of your current reality. That's
Mm.
really important.
Mm.
Interesting. Okay. You've given me lots to
Mm.
think about.
Same. Same.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're at a good time to pause. Uh, I love our
Yeah.
conversations.
I do too. Thank you so much for joining me and figuring out all the tech stuff. And I can't wait to
Oh
see
yeah.
what we talk about next time.
Same. Love you. Bye for now.
Love you too. Bye bye. So the live video ended. Hopefully it will download.
That was great timing because my
No, I don't want to do that.
phone was about out of battery.
Anyway,